This is so great to be here in the town of Lewisboro. Thank you so much. I wanted to make sure that we came up and gave our regular county update to continue the relationships that we have, and we're going to continue to work together as we go through some of the challenging times while the state's doing their budget and finishing up their budget. And certainly the federal government is making modifications. We got to figure out those things and then work through those things together for the benefit of all the Westchester residents. So just wanted to remind folks that we had for our county budget, it's a $2.5 billion budget. We have 4,200 employees. And in our particular case, we were able to hold the line on taxes for the sixth year in a row. But the reality is that this particular budget tries to allocate some different things that are, connects to the town. And we want to make sure to come up and have an opportunity to answer some questions as well. Certainly for our affordable housing, we were able to continue to add $50 million for affordable housing developments. And we also established the new Office of Housing Counsel to support legal services and eviction diversion throughout the county. That particular project is moving forward, and it happens throughout the county, and it doesn't matter where the locations are for eviction prevention and again, for flood mitigation efforts that we'll connect to in just a second with things that are happening here in the town. For public service and public safety and emergency services, we did a record $303 million for public safety, including $78 million for our county police, $161 million for our Department of Correction, $46 million for our Department of Probation, and $18 million for emergency services. The budget also supports new correction officer class, which we just had completed on Friday, with 24 new correction officers, 308 sworn police officers, and the HERO recruitment and retention program for emergency services. That program is very successful. The volunteer services for fire and EMS really enjoy this particular project where we have $4,000 that people are eligible for to be able to support, for you all to be able to recruit and maintain those folks in the volunteer fire services and volunteer EMS. And we just recently signed a piece of legislation which allows people to live in one community, even if they're supported, if they're working in a different one. So that happens in so many places around the county where we have someone volunteer in community A, and they actually live in community B, either because they grew up in that area or because they have other business in that area, but they don't actually live in there, and they were not able to take advantage of the 10% county tax cut that we had for people if you lived and worked in the same community. New York State was able to push that forward, and we opted into that program. So again, another advantage for our volunteer services that happen throughout the county. Our economic growth for Westchester County continues to move forward, and we have our bioscience program, a clean energy workforce development program, and our Office of Tourism and Film continues to promote the county attractions, creating jobs and increasing revenue. Certainly, we have so much things that happen. It was $2.5 billion worth of tourism and film that happened in Westchester County in our Hudson Valley region over 2023. The number in 2024 is getting crunched out right now, and we'll be able to report that to your supervisor and to your teammates to move forward. We continue to work on environment and climate programs, including EV charging stations with the municipalities. We put $5 million up. Some places have taken advantage of that, and we're continuing to work with folks to get through our process, which our law department, I don't know if this ever happens in any other communities, but our law department was holding things up just a tad bit to make sure that things were able to get out to the community. And we want to make sure that that the towns could be able to take advantage of the NYSERDA dollars that are available before they might dry up. So we're working through that feverishly to move those programs forward. And we increased our child care subsidies to 24 million by 24 million to a total of 80 million, and maintain funding for food pantries to address food insecurity. I know it's been a challenge as we watched everything go around. We're continuing to work with everyone moving forward and acting like there is not challenges and changes until those actually happen. So we're not taking any proactive measures. We're trying to make sure that we are responding and not reacting to the challenges that happen every day. So we're continuing to work with that. I know that there's been, as you pointed out, Supervisor, from the very beginning, that we've had this opportunity to continue to work on our PFAS issues and working together. We're going to continue to do that. Our Department of Planning and certainly led with David Kavinga, who you're probably the one that most familiar with in talking back and forth to make sure that we're able to work with our partners at the state level and our federal partners to be able to bring dollars and resources to Westchester. Finally, I want to just say is that I feel strongly that we are blessed in Westchester to be represented by members of Congress by two different parties. So guess what? No matter who's in charge at the top, we have one person or another that's going to be able to talk to those individuals to make sure that we're getting everything that Westchester deserves. And we're going to continue to work with them to make sure that we're doing that together. So Supervisor, I'm really happy to be up here, and I'm happy to answer any questions from the town board members or from yourself.
Thank you very much, Ken. Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I know the last item, the PFAS item, if you have any more details on the way the county is thinking of approaching that. It's a beastly problem, obviously.
Oh, yeah, it is a beast of a problem, and there's been some opportunities for us to work together to try to do some different things, whether it's for restaurants and trying to move forward. The state has had that $5.4 billion Environmental Bond Act, and we're still waiting for those projects to start to be released. We know for some of the flooding issues that we've had on the Sound Shore on the other side of the county, that we're expecting those projects to be released any day now. And I also expect that they're going to use some of those dollars for our water quality improvement. So you don't necessarily have to get water shipped in from out of the town to be able to support those businesses and community members that need that. And we're working with our health department to try to get some information that we can put on our website, because that has been part of the challenges, Dan, that people have been.
That's the thing that I get the most from like residents is just like, what's going on with this? Because they've heard the worst of it, oh my God, it's everywhere or whatever.
Yes.
And when we kind of feel like we're in the middle here, we don't know what to do, we don't have sources of information. That's where if you guys can help.
Yeah, especially with the changes. We had New York State at a certain threshold, and now the federal EPA has, they've lowered it at that even further.
Yes.
And most of Lewisboro utilizes wells to get their water. And we can't do anything about residential wells. Unfortunately, there isn't any funding available to us to help residents. And that's something I've spoken to Erica Pierce about, and she's, keeping an eye on things and trying to support us however she can with, potentially, and working with our state reps to try to see if there's, any way we can support that.
And we're going to continue to do that together, because that's half the battle. Is one is to be able to tell residents what they need to do for themselves. And again, trying to come up with solutions which everyone would like us to do from the health department's perspective is to put up a roadmap and say, here's how to fix this problem. And the challenge from the health department is that every place is a little bit different. But we should be able to say certain things like, all right, if you want to make sure to protect your water as a resident, you could put a water filter on that source, right? You don't have to do the whole house filter. You could do this kind of filter, and that would be helpful in those areas. So we've been working with our Department of Health to try to be able to put some of those things out on a website that are helpful suggestions with a big asterisk next to it that says, we're not telling you what to do. This is not engineering, but again, give people some options, because otherwise, as Dan, you were pointing out, people always look for the worst. We have this problem across the whole county. And again, we're going to continue to work with WMOA, our Municipal Officials Association, and friends like you, Supervisor, that we were able to try to work through that with Legislator Erica Pierce, and she's been dogmatic about trying to resolve this issue.
I don't know if you're aware, but in the town of Lewisboro, we lease space from our Board of Ed, from the Catona Lewisboro School District. And it's my understanding that as of the end of this year and as of the end of August, we are losing our access to those facilities. And it's my understanding that part of the reason is because the county will not renew their certificates of occupancy, partly due to the fact that the water treatment there is not up to standards. And as a result, that's one of the reasons that it's my understanding the school district plans on quote unquote mothballing the building until further notice, and we're basically getting kicked out. Are you aware of anything having to do with C of O's issue to school districts regarding this?
No, Andrea, I'm familiar with them. I will certainly take a look at it again. But I think that one of the challenges has been that if there is a situation that comes up, that there's a determination from the state that it's unsafe for folks to be in it because of the water quality, then we have to have a solution, and that means the school board would have to take specific action from the Lewisboro School District, to Lewisboro School District to say, here's what we're doing to solve this problem. So we won't give you a CO for something that we can't, but we should be working together to try to find some solutions to that. So we'll work with our state. So again, the answer shouldn't just be, here's the problem, good luck, right? You know, we're not in that particular position. We haven't ever been in for Westchester County, and we're going to continue to be able to reach out to folks, but I'll take a look at that as well.
Thank
And
you.
we'll certainly get back to you.
Just want to thank you for your leadership and your hard work and your always being available to us here in Lewisboro. We appreciate it.
Well, you know, I love coming up here, right, and hanging out with all of you, and we'll be able to continue to work together to be able to resolve these problems, because the only way that we're going to get through any of these challenges is by working through them together. They're always high dollar amounts. There's nothing that's really inexpensive to fix. But in this case, whether it's the school district, whether it's PFAS, whether it's for resident or the business community, I mean, we're trying to deal with all of those issues together. So we look forward to working together.
Yeah,
Becoming a real issue for us because
Mhm.
now the town is in the position of looking for other places to put our town offices on a very short timeline. And it's going to be a huge burden on the taxpayers.
Well, all of the solutions are a huge burden on all of us together, but again, to try to find some solutions to this problem, because if you move from place A to place B and you still have the same water quality issue, then we're not going to be able to resolve it that way. But I know Supervisor and I have had some offline discussions about trying to see what things we can do together. And we're going to continue partnering to make sure that we can do these things at the best cost for our taxpayers altogether. And again, utilizing the Environmental Bond Act is one of those opportunities to do that. And then when the dust settles at the federal level, we'll be able to figure out how to partner with them at a different level as well, because these quality issues, again, are just not in Lewisboro. It's not just in the town. It is all over. And specifically, since this is the watershed for New York City, we have to continue to work together to do this.
Yeah, and on a note related to water quality and requirements of the Department of Health, I'll have to say they have been very supportive. We've had some recent businesses that have gotten in or have had issues with requirements from the Department of Health, but then with lack of resources, some of those things that had to be accomplished and reviewed and analyzed and permits issue were taking a long time. So they've done a lot better. And we've got the right relationships there. So hopefully that'll continue. And the latest success we had was with your planning department and the CDBG grant.
Yes.
So we were one of the recommended, our award or our request is one of the recommended ones that's going to go in front of the Board of Legislators for approval.
Yes.
And then an agreement with the Housing and Urban Development. So looking forward to that. And I guess that comes across your desk after the BOL approved it. So
But it will, and people have asked about that because those are federal dollars for the Community Development Block Grant Program. And we have been acting like things are normal until they're
Right.
not, right? So we're going to continue to move forward together to make sure that we're working on all of these problems together. Thank you for the good words on the health department. We're going to continue to work on that because it's been a challenge from the day we walked in the door in 2018 to make sure that those kind of things, whether it's permits for applications from applicants from developers or from our municipalities, from our local residents, trying to come up with different solutions on septic systems that may not have been experienced by our county folks before. We're going to keep working on all of those together. So thank you, Supervisor. We really appreciate that. So
thank you very much, Ken.
appreciate the time. Thank you so
again.
much. And we'll
Right.
look forward to seeing you soon. Right.
Okay, take care. Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and start with public comment number one. Anyone here would like to come up to the podium and say something?
Number 3, the Cross River. it's a small town, and I hear that, Tony, you think I don't like you. I like you. I just don't like your performance. There's no long-range planning in Lewisboro. Everything is rushed, and decisions are made in haste. As an example, Wednesday's executive session. Usually have executive session today. Why does it have to be rushed on a Wednesday? Unfortunately, it seems that you don't lead, you react. I was very impressed with Ken Jenkins. He's a leader. Why can't we have some of that? I know you're not a stupid person. I think you're a very smart person, but you need to lead. And it seems that the last group that gets your ear, you move that way. Instead of looking at the whole picture, taking Richard, Andrea, their expertise, you don't listen. You tend to just listen to Dan. It just doesn't make any sense. And I'm talking from being a 40-year resident. 2 out of my 4 daughters live here. I have grandchildren here. My house will not be sold. It will be given to one of my grandchildren. I'm here for the long term. When I leave, I'm going out horizontal. I'm not like most people in Lewisboro. The moment their kids are seniors, they're gone. They could care less. So everything you do now will affect my children and grandchildren. Unfortunately, in Lewisboro, if you open your mouth, then there's issues. Luckily, none of them have my last name. I could take the slings and arrows. I don't want to put that on my children or my grandchildren, but I'm going to fight for them with the last breath I have. Now, at a Lewisboro elementary school, town's homeless. A town that's homeless. That's insane. Especially the fact that you've known about the issues for a number of years. That's a disaster over there. The school district is trying to mitigate lawsuits. Come on. Nothing works without money being the primary thing. And then we have the pickleball courts. $350,000 spent, but we had to get it in because, again, the money had to be designated. And then the bid comes in at 1.1 million. And in the bid, it says if there's a better or a cheaper alternative, speak to us. That person couldn't speak to anybody. The bid goes out again, and guess what? They took his proposal, so Kellard and Session gets paid twice. They got the best game going. If I'm wrong, that's but don't listen to me. I'd like to just say, someone sent me this that was posted on Facebook. How much
Thank you,
time?
Ken.
15
That was your
seconds?
3 minutes. Thank you.
Can I just have 30 seconds?
3 minutes.
Can I have 30 seconds? Poll the board.
Hold the board. Rich? Rich, you want to give him 30 seconds?
15 seconds.
15 here.
15 seconds?
Go.
Okay, go 15 seconds.
Town board has had years to figure this out. They haven't. Their dysfunction has been an embarrassment for a while now. The town has had, okay. I'll paraphrase. It was an embarrassment, and the person said it was like watching reality TV, and dysfunction was a good name for it. And you know who that was? It wasn't a right winger. It was Elizabeth Garrity, former school board member, Democrat candidate for the 17th district. This is what they said about you. So it's not just Republicans, it's Democrats. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Anybody else? Okay, how about on Zoom?
Yes, Simone O'Connor, I'm asking you to unmute, please.
Good evening. I enjoyed listening to Ken Jenkins. I wanted to ask Tony what the water update is at Oak Ridge. I called to get one, and I was told there wasn't one recently. As you know, they're working, and it's near where my mother lives. I pass it all the time. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. I'd love to know what's going on because Mr. Jenkins did express his concern for PFAS. That's been going on for decades, and I was pleased to actually hear Councilman Welch for the first time, I believe, in the 5 years I've been listening, actually ask a question about PFAS. So thanks for that. Putting a water filter on that Mr. Jenkins spoke about does not seem to be a solution. And speaking about businesses and the county health department, they are not working with businesses. They're going after businesses. So I find it interesting that they will go after a business because they're very concerned about PFAS, but at the same time aren't doing anything about the PFAS that our kids in Meadow Pond are dealing with, or that the people in Oak Ridge are still dealing with. So as much as I enjoyed listening to Mr. Jenkins and Tony, you talking about how great the county health department is and everybody just loves each other, we still have bad water. It's not fixed, and I'd like an update. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Simone.
Thank you.
Barbara Mangione, I'm asking you to unmute, please.
Can you hear me, Janet?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Yes, I am very happy with County Executive Jenkins. I loved what he gave us as an update. I was hoping we'd be able to ask a question or two because I did have one for him. I will be contacting him, but I also just want to ask the board in regards to the battery energy storage systems, which I brought up months and months ago. I know the county executive has passed some legislation regarding it and what they will be doing from the county level. But what I was a little disappointed in, and I will speak to him about that, is basically whether or not a company can put something into a municipality and where it would go is still up to the municipality, that the county will not be getting involved in that, but that the county will have a central database of applications. So my question to the board, and maybe you can just answer it during polling of the board, is there anywhere in the town, on the town website, a town department where a resident like myself or anybody else, because I'm sure a lot of people will be concerned about this, can look up and see if there are any pending applications for battery energy storage systems? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Barbara. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Janet. All right, moving on. So next is communication. So I have a couple of things here. First, I'm going to start with, this is a letter that I received from Adam Rose, where he says, "Dear Mr. Consalvis, you know, my husband and I have lived in town for over 30 years. Peter is a retired NYPD sergeant, and I am a former auxiliary trooper with the Connecticut State Police. And we have already advocated for and supported the Lewisboro Police Department, including recent support for the K9 handler and his vehicle. It is for this reason that I'm pleased to enclose my contribution of $50,000 to the town of Lewisboro to fund planning and design services needed to eventually build the Lewisboro Police Department a proper and professional headquarters building. Perhaps we will be able to do more in the future, but I did not want to wait to send you this payment of $50,000. Thank you for your service to the town. Sincerely, Adam Rose." So I'd like to thank Adam very much for his support. This is, if you recall, last town board meeting, I think it was March 24th. We had also donated towards badges for our police department. So thank you very much, Adam.
Fantastic.
And next we have, I'll let Andrea read.
Speaking of our police department,
Proclamation.
tonight we're gonna be presenting.
I'll tell you what, do we want Frank since he's here? If you don't mind standing up at the podium. Sorry to put you on the spot, Frank.
No, we're not.
Tonight, we're gonna be presenting our former chief of police and longtime employee of the Lewisboro Police Department with a proclamation from the town board, which will read: Whereas Frank Secret's career with the town of Lewisboro has spanned an extraordinary period of dedication, service, and commitment to the safety and well-being of the community. And whereas in April 1982, Frank was hired as a part-time police officer, beginning a career that would span decades of service, culminating in his promotion to chief of police in 2009. And whereas during his tenure as a part-time police officer, Frank also contributed to the maintenance and highway departments, demonstrating his unwavering commitment to public service in every aspect of his work. And whereas Frank's dream of becoming a full-time police officer was realized on January 1st, 2001, when he was hired full-time by the Lewisboro Police Department, serving with distinction as the youth officer. And whereas Frank's leadership was instrumental in making Lewisboro the safest small town, a testament to his dedication to the safety and security of all residents. And whereas Frank was honored with the life-saving award from the Westchester County EMS on July 2nd, 1995, for saving the life of a heart attack victim, showcasing his bravery, quick thinking, and selflessness. And whereas throughout his long career, Frank not only provided exceptional service, but also made a lasting impact on the community by hiring the first 2 full-time patrol officers for the town of Lewisboro, ensuring that the department was equipped to meet the needs of its residents. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the members of the Town Board of Lewisboro, hereby honor Frank Secret's retirement and express deep gratitude for his decades of commitment, service, and leadership. His contributions will be felt for generations to come. And at the Town Board meeting on the 14th date of April 2025.
Well,
I just want heard numerous stories from the young people of our town that have gone up through the high school, where they recounted time and time again how they would seek out Frank's help or his input in, they would just like to hang out with Frank in his office. They felt safe and secure, and they really felt that they could confide in him and ask for his guidance. And he's really been an asset to this community on so many levels. So thank you, Frank.
Well,
Thank you, Frank.
let me thank formally Mr. Supervisor, members of Town Board, and Chief Alfano in the back. It has been truly an honor to serve in the town that I grew up in, raised my kids in, and only moving on because of my granddaughter. That's the reason why we're leaving.
It's a good reason.
It is. You can't beat that one. So but thank you all once again very much. Thank you. It's been great.
I can read the actual proclamation, which was sealed in a box that I struggled to open because we didn't think you were gonna be here.
Well, this is really. Yes.
I have to give you a hug, Frank.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much for everything. Yeah.
And this, you directing traffic at the library fair.
Traffic, yeah. No, I just hold up traffic because I talk to everybody. So I've been told. Richard, thank you. Neighbor Dan.
See you in the backyard.
Yes, you got it.
Couple more
Yeah,
minutes.
here you go. All right, everybody. Have a nice.
Good night, Frank. Thank you.
Bye, Frank.
Thank you, Frank. Yeah, easy to read, you all. That's Carrie's idea.
That was a good idea, Carrie. Thank you for the large print.
All right, next we have the consent agenda. So I'd like to go ahead and motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes of March 24th and also the monthly reports for the building department and the police department. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
All right.
Okay. Okay, old business. So now we have resolution. So to award the timber frame bathhouse bid and the project funding. So we went out for a second bid on the timber frame and the bids came back. This was distributed, but I don't know if it's in the, I don't think it's in the
Thank you.
packet.
It's not in the packet.
Yeah. But those are from February 19th. These were the two bids that we received from the timber framer. One was $428,127, and the second was $539,000. The bid responses have been reviewed by council. And the recommendation is to go with Mid-Atlantic Timber Framers from 428, 127.
So we have confirmation of both conforming.
Correct. It was rebid and the submissions were conforming. Second time around.
Great, and the like references are good.
Thank you for your nod, Nicole. For those of you who can't see,
Oh,
Nicole's
Nicholas in
been
the room, yeah.
very involved in this process.
We need a motion to approve the Mid-Atlantic timber frame.
First, you have to figure out how you're funding it.
That's right.
Yeah, so we had this, and we have Annie here, so Annie, if you don't mind stepping up. So we had, let me just pass this out. This has been passed out before, but we made some changes based on some updates to additional Parks and Rec subdivision fees that were collected, which we're applying towards this project.
Annie, could you walk us through this?
I don't have a copy. in
Yeah, I'll
front of
give you
me.
a copy. This is the, yes.
Okay. Tony, you
Yeah,
want to go
so
through
let
it?
me just outline. So we have, we had approved the general contractor, ADI East, at the March 24th meeting. But then there was a question about how do we fund the project, whether we bond for it or use fund balance. And so this is the spreadsheet that we put together,
Mhm.
Annie and I. So I'll let Annie speak to it.
Pick up where we left off. We were talking about at that point, how to $600,000 we were talking about how to fund, right?
That's right.
That's
615. Yeah,
Okay.
Down here looks like
Just
it's-
so have the numbers changed from where we were
yes.
before? All right, so let's start there. So we were 615.
And now we're at,
All right, so let's get up there.
569, that's the number you're looking at?
right.
Yeah, so we have the 2024 bond of 600,000, that's still the same. That's the borrowing we did last year that's going towards this project. So that gave you the 752,000 of additional funding that we would need. Subdivision fees are that total of 100,000, which is 3 line items up there that add up to 100,000. And then another 82,500 to be collected in subdivision fees that are supposed to go towards Parks and Rec improvements. So that leaves the 569,900 bond or fund balance to use. And Tony and I, in our discussions, we talked about using fund balance because as of last year's audit, the fund balance is at over 6 million, which is a high percentage of our operating expenses when our fund balance policy really should stick around 20%. Is like a baseline. And then as Janet from CMA was here a few weeks ago, she said the median fund balance level for towns similar to ours is 45%. And we're currently at more like 60%. So we do have some room in our fund balance for some capital purchases,
So we're currently at 60%?
60%.
And how? Okay, so last year when we were going through the budget process,
Mhm.
we used the fact that we had an excess in our fund balance
Correct,
in order to keep us within the tax cap.
correct.
Thank you, Tony.
It's in there.
So my question is, when it gets to be time again to do the budget
Mhm.
in the fall, by reducing our fund balance by 569,900, how will that affect how we approach our efforts to stay under the tax?
Yeah. Well, even dipping into it for this case, it's not going to deplete us down to 20%. We still have, Tony and I went over several line items that we could technically use the fund balance that's been built for. And it's really meant to be used for capital purchases and some part for OPEB, which is that liability that CMA talked about with our pension obligations. But when you have it built up to a certain point, it's prudent to use it towards projects like this so that you don't sit on the money. We don't have to get a bond. We don't have to incur the cost of debt service.
talking about that, what I remember, talking about the 600, and if we went to bonding option, I think the total we were talking about was, I think, about 790, which would be the total cost over 15 years. So around-
Is that the number? I don't have that one in front of me, but that's the cost of the debt service, the 600 plus interest. Is that what you're
I
saying?
think over 15 years, that's what my recollection of talking about that, so it'll be a little bit less. So, I understand and I appreciate everything you said as far as that, but one of the things that is going through, my calculation is that, based upon all the things that are, we're contemplating now, by way of, infrastructure.
Right.
For the town and town's employees and all the facilities. And you can tell me why I'm wrong or what have you, that the more money we essentially keep in the bank right now. Until we ascertain, say, in the next 3, 6, 9 months or what have you, how we're gonna expend. It's maybe the best, or the better way to go until we can see the whole board. That's kind of what I was giving thoughts about that.
Well, yeah, Tony and I spoke about this briefly too. I think a part of the budget process that I wasn't part of this past year because I was brand new, is that with the department heads, we really should sit down and get a list of needs, wants, wishes, 5-year plan type of thing, where the departments can break out what it is they would like to see capital spending on, and then that comes back as part of the budget conversation for what, and then we bond
Well,
basically a year from
these-
now.
These are gonna go,
Right,
where our court's gonna go, where our town employees are gonna go.
that's right.
Right now, that's probably taking the priority.
But
So-
that, and again, this is based on our discussions and consulting with others, that's when you bond,
That's right. Something bigger like that,
You
yeah,
bond for
we
it.
would bond for.
right? So you get one massive bond. that'll
That's
cover
right.
that.
So that bond will have a list of, 20 items in there, whether it's highway trucks or,
Cause you don't want
you
to
know.
piecemeal it. That was the other piece. You don't
No.
want to take, X amount now and X amount later and X amount next year. You
right,
wait till one time a year, which is what Leo used to do.
that's right. And it
Used to
was
wait
about
till
this
what time of
time
year?
every year.
Yeah,
That
around March, so,
Leo would enter into a bond. So
right.
I think those conversations need to happen, but like you said, there is a current need for people to be relocated. So however we do that, we have fund balance that we can use towards that also.
Just want to make sure it doesn't affect what potential interest rates. we
That's
get.
right.
Yeah, and I
That's
think
it.
that's something we're keeping a close eye on.
Yeah.
And in fact, at the next meeting, we're going to formalize our fund balance
Right.
reserve to be 20%, because right now it's not.
It's not. no.
And this way, it's a guide for the future that whoever's sitting here
Mhm,
knows they can't go below 20%.
right.
20% is 20% of what,
General fund
Operating expenses.
appropriations, the operating expenses.
or just for.
For the year.
Not highway.
No, yeah, it's the general fund balance policy. It's for the general fund, not highway.
Yep.
Term.
Yeah.
So you haven't looked at an updated, bonding cost for the advisors.
No, we haven't. We had CMA here, when they broke down the big borrowing that we were talking about, $4 million or something, but
2 million versus 4 million.
right,
I mean, it's just a timing issue, like if you decide you're gonna bond this now, it means that you may be gonna spend that cash later. But now you can start accruing interest on this and you don't need to.
Yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind
Six
is,
of one, half a dozen the other, except this gives you more interest costs.
yeah, and it wouldn't be a bond for this amount, because it's
no,
not a huge amount. It would be a
a
ban,
ban, right,
which then next year gets reissued or rolled into a bond, depending if we have multiple bans or,
right.
Yeah.
So then, can't we just be presented to look at the numbers side by side? I mean, Annie's coming in here saying.
Well, here's the-
What you, no, Annie's coming in and saying is that, no, the numbers are not talking about the bonding, which is what I was referencing before, as far as coming to do a side by side comparison. Which is what I specifically discussed in light of what I'm talking about now, been consistent on. So, Annie said she spoke with you as far as the conclusion that the two of you came, is that we should, do it this way. And
Correct.
that may be something that inclined to go along with, but again, you're not presenting the two options side by side.
Right, so.
And he's here to say that you, the two of you discussed it, that this is what you came up with, that we should take it this way.
Yeah, and she made a decision that we shouldn't borrow this year. We should wait till all the capital costs numbers are in when we run through the project process for 26.
Who makes,
Well, that was my recommendation in looking at the cash flow over the past 2 years and the way the fund balance has grown. You do have funds that can be used towards capital purchases. That fund balance has been growing year over year. Tony showed the jumps. And you can find them all in the audited financial statements on the website, but when it grows to that level, it should be used. And we're already going to try to pay off one of the band from last year. We're paying that off in June. And then to get a full list of like capital projects for the town, like the big snapshot, the big picture, then we can do our borrowing based on that.
that's my point.
So the second page that Tony handed to us
Mhm.
is a list of what's recommended for it to be spent out of fund balance this year. Is that
Yeah.
correct? So the recommendations I'm seeing is in addition to the pool bathhouse,
Mhm.
which is on this particular sheet, approximately 570,000. We're looking also out of fund balance to take the cost of the bathrooms at Onatru,
Mhm.
paying. It says paving, that's the thing.
Oh, sorry.
The ban off. that you
It
just-
was a paving
It was a
ban.
paving ban. It-
It's a
A paving ban.
it is- yeah,
Got
sorry.
it.
Yeah,
Highway trucks,
that's a discussion.
that's
topic.
the next
yeah.
discussion, and then it says applied to 2025 budget, which is the discussion that we had last year when we were doing the budget, so that we were able to keep ourselves under
Within the tax cap.
So that, the total that we're talking about coming out of fund balance for 2025 is 1,741,583. So, and that would leave us slightly teensy-weensy bit under the 45% that's recommended is,
That's the median. That's not recommended. That's the median.
that's it, well,
Oh, yeah.
it's kind of not
Benchmark.
recommended, they're saying that's a healthy place to be.
Yes,
That's what we were
To
told.
stay in that double A plus.
that's right.
20% or higher. 20% or higher.
20% or
That's
higher.
what's in the S&P report.
Correct, but 45% was mentioned as a nice place to be, is what I recall from our conversation.
Picking up on
Thank you.
Andrew's point, where we were when we had the CMA.
CMA. Mhm.
It's country music award. So, and one of the things I was talking about there to see, you're waiting for a little bit more by way of figures, and one of the things we're talking about, Andrew brought this up in the past, in other words. So now for this calendar year, we're now in almost mid-April,
Mhm.
and we can see how we've been doing for the first quarter.
That's
Based
right.
upon, so do you have any input as far as that, like going through the first quarter of 25? How are we doing based upon like, projections that we had?
Yeah, so
And revenue.
Yeah.
Thus far. So-
First quarter it's tricky to look at because I think I explained this last time because we pay a lot of prior year expenses in the first few months of the year. So the first quarter is really the first time you can take a look at the expenses, but we still processed a lot of 2024 bills all the way through. I think this last check run has 2024 bills. So I can run that for you. We have, the revenue numbers from the building department are what they are. So yeah, I can take a look at that as compared to budget right now, but I think what will give us a little bit more assurance is when the auditors come on Monday and they go back over our fund balance and they sign off on what they think the fund balance is now and what that percentage is now. And that'll be as of December of 2024. Because right now, the 60% number is an estimate, but that's what it was in the audited financial statements of 2023. And my expectation is that the fund balance grew again
And
last
this is-
year.
That's what goes back to the conversation we had that year projections that at the end of 24, post audit would be like the same or a little bit better. That was your.
That's my
Which
expectation.
is your estimate that's on here.
That's right.
That's the
That's
2024 fund balance estimate.
Yeah,
Right, in a week or so, we'll know that.
Actually, won't.
I don't know about a week,
You
but
don't-
they're
you
coming
don't
here
have
next
a
week.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna, because you have to wait till the audit report. is
Yeah, they
completed.
have to do all their
Could be-
field work. They're here for a week doing field work and
but
then they
usually
go
We don't
off.
get it until.
think
like,
June.
June.
I think June and then well, I haven't talked to them yet, but I'd like them to come and present their
Right.
audited
Yeah.
results.
Is there any reason we can't have like a side by side on this? Because this is something.
I'd rather make, vote on this right tonight, rather, side by side isn't gonna give you anything
Well,
different
well,
than
Isn't it a
knowing
matter
that
of,
you're gonna.
like, what the band cost is versus what you're making in the bank, for
Mhm.
example, right? I mean, that's really the side by side. Got this amount here, talking about either taking that money out of the bank where it's maybe earning something versus doing a band, and there's some cost there. So do you have a ballpark what
So-
those two?
Well, the interest we have in the Flagstar, which is the high interest, the high yield checking account. We're making about $15,000 a month in interest on that. That was how much we made last month, and
What
that's,
the percentage is, if we're gonna.
it's about 3.5%.
Yeah, I was gonna say
think.
close to 4, but.
It was 4 at one
Yeah.
point. I want to say it's
Yeah.
been ending up at 3.5.
Right,
Fine. Well, that might be higher than the van cost, no, what's the van cost?
So we didn't go through a scenario with CMA for this number.
not for this number, but for the 2 million that she presented, it was a 4.35%
Yeah,
Oh, for the van.
for the band.
All right,
So
so well, there you go, that's your.
That's your answer, basically, yeah,
yeah,
It's
It's got high level, but yeah. Mhm.
Down to that.
right.
right.
And by taking out a fund balance, we have a clean slate with the only borrowing currently in place is the bond. The bond that we took out last year.
We have a 2018 bond still too.
Right, so there's the 2018 bonds, which,
Mhm.
there was, but I'm talking about, I should have said bands. There's
Yeah.
no more
No
bands,
bands,
no more
that's right.
bands. Paying off the $320,000 paving ban eliminates, it's the last ban that we have.
Mhm.
And now we just have the 2018 and the 2024,
Right,
not counting the bonds for overage.
So,
right.
Yeah.
so you're talking about in the itemization, paving ban paid off. 320,000, that's what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Yes.
So you want to move on it now because what is the issue, Tony? Or it's been overthought.
Yeah, because we're just gonna kick this project down the road for another couple of months. We're gonna miss out on the window of opportunity for the bid with the GC,
Well, how,
which closes, I think.
well, how is that what is already? I don't want to miss out on the opportunity. What's the timing?
We open them 2 minutes. We know on the.
And that was stated at the last meeting that's why we. Bids need to be awarded within 90 days.
Okay.
So we have until May 19th to award the bid.
Yep.
And when's our next meeting?
I'm sorry?
We're still waiting on, we're trying to find out about that on two bathrooms, which they just came in. I'm just making sure.
Yeah.
There's something about it.
When's our meeting in our next meeting?
So I think in my opinion, another set of numbers, knowing that you have interest, you're getting interest in the bank at 3-point-something% versus a loan that's going to cost you 4-point-something% and even higher potentially by the time and then this is borrowing that we're going to have to reissue if it's a ban. It obviously will be a ban. We're going to have to decide what to do with it a year from now. And it's out of sync with all the other capital borrowing that we may end up doing earlier in the year, because ideally you want to borrow early in the year, like March timeframe, you want to be
But
able
how's
to.
that gonna change between now and April
Because-
28th?
And why is that just?
How is that going
all-
to change
all the points-
between now and April
All the
28th?
points that you're making.
Yeah.
This goes back to my point, just to see it, I mean, the numbers are the numbers and seeing in a side by side comparison. What I'm
yeah.
hoping is that it compels me to move one clear direction as opposed to another, but what will be provided is one proposal. And I thought I was pretty clear when we had the, CMA here, as far as that.
Yeah, it was-
What
it
I
was-
contemplating, as far as seeing if it would make sense in light of what all the things we have to evaluate.
Rich, we're talking about like, here's these numbers, you can either multiply these numbers times 3%, or you can multiply them by 4.5%. And like, that's the comparison. They, write it down on a sheet of paper again, but.
I mean, does it hurt just to see it in writing? I know you've done the analysis, Tony.
Yeah, we both
If
did the analysis. That was the
if
action
Rick
item
wants
for,
to See it in writing, there's no harm.
but don't wait till the board meeting. Get it beforehand.
No, this is
You know, this
actually
is
it's
something that-
exactly what I said. No, actually, it's not waiting for the board meeting, to the contrary. I brought up when CMA was here and I articulated publicly that I wanted to take a look at both based upon all the infrastructure we've had coming up. And I didn't know what anyone was going to say in the presentation until I heard it. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, so there was a note that we were going back with our controller and getting her recommendation, and this is her recommendation. So now we want to see numbers that's gonna be off by it's gonna be, I don't know. Let's say it's yeah, again, to Dan's point, it's 4 something percent or whatever that is versus the 3% we're getting in the bank.
And beyond that, it's like there's this time, we're chewing up this time, which essentially, there could be other unknowns that happen later on in this project. You don't want to give away, your execution time for no value. If there's something that really needs to be, worked on, delayed.
But what are we giving up between the 14th and the 28th of April?
The project can start, can get going, they can place orders, then the next
Actually,
things that can
my
happen.
understanding, which I've asked to Nicole, is that the timetable that we started for after Labor Day this year, and we're in total compliance with where we want to do.
But you want to get the contractors to start lining up their resources and schedules and.
Absolutely, which
And
is
all that
why,
stuff.
which is why in April
Materials.
14th, which is why in April 14th, there's plenty of time for them to do it on Labor Day. Listen, I've been in favor of this project since day one, as you remember.
So let's vote on
As
it
you
now.
remember, I had
Let's move
pushback.
forward.
I had pushback when I was trying to authorize $5,000 for some drawing. There was a delay in early on that, so I'm totally in favor of this project. There's no problem
Okay.
as far as that.
So I'd like to go ahead and motion that we approve the timber framer bid. And funding of the project using as recommended by Annie, using the fund balance.
Is it the proper,
It would be. the
Fund balance first.
Bid would be awarded to Mid-Atlantic Timber Frame at a cost of $428,127. Subject to review, bonds and with the funding.
with the funding, okay, second,
Discussion.
So I can't have the numbers to compare side by side before voting. Do I have that right? I don't want to.
Yeah, there's a motion on the table, so.
So I'm asking
I think we
discussion,
have-
so I'm
Discussion,
clarifying,
yeah.
I'm having a discussion.
Right. All right, so all in favor? Oh, roll call. Rich?
I'm abstaining.
Andrea?
I say no, wait till April 28th, 2 more weeks isn't gonna kill us if Rich wants the numbers and Mary's not here.
I'm a yes.
doesn't pass.
Okay. So wait till April 28th. Can we just verify, Nicole, real quick on that schedule with, it was what's the name again? EDI?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we didn't.
Yeah, the awarded in March. They're supposed to be submitting amount of insurance tonight. And that part of the funding is on.
Okay.
In the bond,
Right,
so that can be, at least the contract can be signed.
right,
I would countersign for you with this. But they're needed.
right.
It's going to do it on 20th, and I haven't seen them put it yet.
Okay.
We'll probably fill in further in there.
So,
Nicole, we wait 2 weeks to get this additional side by side as far as our scheduling, where we want to go. Finally, we just want to make sure there's no adverse repercussions as far as that 2 weeks.
As far as I know, that's fine. They do go hand in hand. So once the general contractor comes in and does demolition, timber frame is coming in with the material already. So they need to get that ordered as soon as possible so that they can get the structure up and then the GC to come back.
okay, so the takeaway is that Annie, you're gonna put together a side-by-side comparison of just to be clear,
Borrowing.
borrowing
versus-
570,000
Mhm.
versus taking it out of the bank.
Yep.
Okay.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Don't go anywhere.
Okay, next we have new business. These are proposed amendments to section 220 of the town code. Let's get this out of the way here. This is something that the chief brought to our attention. And so the chief had discussions internally with our emergency management folks, with our first responders, and he put together bullet points that were distributed to the board as to why we should pursue this. And so I'll go ahead and let the chief.
All right, so good evening, town board, town supervisor. So basically, since we have this code book under a microscope, this is one of the reasons why I came up with this, along with I have another proposal soon that you should be seeing is the commercial traffic, that I want to kind of mirror the vehicle and traffic law to the town code. So it could write under the town ordinance as opposed to the state. But back to this, basically, two reasons why. One would be a stat flight for critical mass incidents. You'd be able to use these already approved helo landing zones in order to transport special victims to specialized trauma centers. I'm not going to go into this. You guys all.
Yeah, we
this,
have
the
the- we
50
all have the
acres
code.
on the R34. Okay. So basically to qualify for the residents that are listening, I know it's in the agenda, but it's basically helipads for special permit use under the R-4A district. And you, in order to qualify, you need to have more than 50 acres. So with that being said, evolution is upon us, and I'd like to get ahead of this and be proactive as opposed to being reactive. There's a lot of these one-man aircrafts that are coming to light. They're affordable now. They have these one-person electric helicopters as well. So it's like these big drones, probably the size of this desk here, that could potentially be buzzing around the town of Lewisboro. So I'm trying to get ahead of this.
Are there sort of two parts to this? One is like.
So one is basically if you're able to if you qualify for one of these 50-acre lots where if you wanted to get a helipad, it would have to go through zoning and building and all that. You would qualify under these circumstances here in 220. And then it would also give the police, fire and EMS the right to utilize that for a stat flight response. So if there's a critical incident, they'd be able to land at these locations.
Condition of the approval.
Of the permit and everything to get that.
Yeah.
Sorry to confuse you.
So people who qualify to apply for this special use permit in order to do, so do they, because it can be used for emergency service and things of that nature, are they entitled to any sort of grant or reimbursement or anything from the county, or because it would allow emergency services to use that helipad?
It could, I think it's that I don't know.
Okay.
I guess the homeowner or whoever is interested in doing this, if any at all, they could look into that avenue. I'm basically in order of just, trying to get ahead of this nuisance. One-man helicopters, also throwing this out there because of the lack of, first of all, the traffic alone trying to get to a hospital these days have been increasing. If there's a mass incident, you have volunteer ambulances. We have 2 or 3 in this town now, and then you're going to get neighboring agencies responding. You get helicopters landing at these predetermined zones that we already know of, the fire, EMS, and the police department. So we have these landing zones which are already approved by the town building department and the zoning. So we're kind of ahead of the game.
Yeah, there must be other towns that already have this code in place.
That I do not know of. I have not researched that. So basically it was banned for landing zones due to the close proximity of Danbury and Westchester County Airport. Again, that was written in 70s, if I had to guess. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So again, the traffic To these locations from the seventies to now is pretty big difference.
To your knowledge, are there any regulations or restrictions in place outside what we're proposing here that would prohibit private use of these?
Not that I
Mini
know of.
helicopters
I
going
did check
over
with
the-
Westchester County, there is none, state there is none, and federal there's none. So FAA, they don't have any restrictions.
So with or without these helipads, people can still,
It's town ordinance.
Okay.
And then there's approximately, I would guess, 12
Both sides.
sites. It's hard to tell. Some people could have numerous 5-acre lots and different LLCs and names, but from what I come up with and from my local knowledge, I came up with around 12.
You said our emergency management committee, they're on board.
Yeah. Captain Dan Murtha approved as well. I kind of ran it by him and he was all for it.
I think it's good that you're being proactive about this and, yeah.
so I see
Something
that
should-
it's gonna be done by special use permit on application to the zoning board of appeals. That-
Yes.
So, my thoughts is we should probably ask them for comments on it. I think this is a great idea to get ahead of it, but we should probably ask. Since they're gonna be the determining body. For any comments or suggestions
There's a,
that would make it easier for them.
there's a piece of it that affects 220, so it has to go to planning.
That's what I'm planning anyway, too.
Let's go to county planning as well, right?
You have 239M no matter what, but
Yeah.
your planning board on amendments to zoning, they get an opportunity under your code to comment.
Right.
There's a very small section of this. It's an active new section, but there is a revision to section
Right.
220. So they would,
Okay.
they would
The
comment.
town planning gets 60 days and the county gets 30. I think that's how.
County gets 30, I think the town gets 45, but,
Okay.
okay. But you can make a motion to refer it when you're ready to the planning, do your 239M and then.
You'll get us circle back for a public hearing.
Right, you want their comments before you.
Yeah.
And I'd send it to zoning as well since they're in there.
Does it typically go to zoning? I mean,
The requirement is planning.
it's planning,
But
right?
You
Right,
can certainly send it to
We
zoning.
could.
They're
The
the- they're the entry body.
agency is zoning, so,
Right.
if they may not have, they're not very boisterous on comments, so it wouldn't hurt to first,
That's fine,
and
yeah.
they're gonna be the determining body, they may have something substantial to offer.
Right.
To improve or, since they're the ones who are gonna be implementing what Dave's put together, they might have some comments that could be productive.
So it's a motion to refer the proposed amendment to section 220 to the planning board, ZBA and county planning board for input and comment.
Yep, but county is for 239M on the GML, the other two are for comment.
And a lot of these one-man aircrafts or helicopters, you don't even have to have a helicopter's license. So that's another big
Wow.
problematic.
There's sort of height regulations, like.
I think there is.
They're all
That's
different. There's a
great.
few companies out there. I could send you if you're interested in looking at them, but it's, some could only, the batteries last 2 hours, so you're gonna have buzzing around 2 hours and landing and throw another battery in there and just like the whole drone drama a few months ago.
We have restrictions on drones, but not on.
No, we don't. We only have drone restrictions in town parks,
So
so.
it would be like ATVs in the sky
Yeah,
for our young people, how nice.
so.
So
think it's,
Rich, was that a, did you motion?
Is that a motion?
Yeah, that was
Okay.
a motion. Yeah.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. All right, thank you, chief. Okay. All right, so next on the agenda, we have, this is we're gonna be applying for, it's a New York State DEC Municipal Parks and Recreation Grant for the town park pickleball courts. This is an opportunity that came across my office. Kerry's taking lead on this, and we're just about ready to submit, so we just need the board approval to submit this, and that'll help pay for the pickleball. So I'd like to go ahead and motion that.
Just remind us what
Yeah.
the total cost is now for the pickleball courts.
Total
Great.
cost.
Go back up.
We have to go out to rebid.
Yeah, we have to go out to rebid,
It's ready
Right.
yeah.
to go out, but we need to have this.
Understood.
Yeah, so basically we're Yeah, we're at approximately. Yeah, we'll call total, we're estimating total project costs come in at 963,000. Once we go out to rebid with the redesigned slab. Or the playing surface, I should say. So we have 2 CREST grants that we've applied for, that were granted to us, but we still gotta go through the process. To our senator and our assembly member for 225,000. We have this municipal grant, which really we only need $580,000, but we're not sure what the other grants are gonna come in at. So we were applying for the 1 million. With this municipal parks and recreation grant.
So we have overlap as part of the.
Correct.
Potentially 2 financing sources, and
Right.
once we get 1 out of 2, we're covered.
Right,
And it won't come out of taxpayer pockets.
that's correct. That's the objective.
Well, since we've got a lot of other things that we're anticipating are going to come out of taxpayer pockets, this is
Yep.
good.
Okay, so. So I'd like to go, I think I motioned, right?
But you did.
I motioned, so do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
I
Aye. Next, we have an agreement with Ridgefield Aquatic Club to use Lewisboro Town Pool for swim practice.
So,
second,
Discussion, all in favor? Aye.
I
Next is an agreement with Storm Aquatics to use Lewisboro Town Pool for swim practice.
so
Second? I'll second. Discussion, all in favor? Aye.
I
Next is the Onachuk Park Farm Park bathroom renovation.
This
Let's
goes
talk
back to
about
that
that.
chart that Annie gave us, or you gave us.
Yeah, so that's in there as well, using fund balance.
165.
Yes. And I'm gonna put this up on the screen. This is something that Nicole provided. And then we have,
By approving the bid, are we accepting the bid?
yes,
If you authorize the award of the bid, then you're accepting the bid.
that's,
I don't know if that approval was accepted.
You're authorizing the award, provided you know how you're funding it.
Hello.
Good evening. Members of the board, supervisor, my name is Arthur Sackler. I'm a principal at Lothrop Associates Architects. I'd like to thank the board and Nicole for engaging our firm to design this project. I prepared a letter of recommendation. Has that been shared with the board? So back in late March, this project was issued for bid.
Thank you.
So this project was issued for bid on April 3rd. We had a pre-bid meeting at the site. Nicole, myself, one of my staff, and 3 contractors attended. The bid opening was held Thursday, April 10th, town clerk's office. The town received 2 bids. A 3rd bid arrived 3 minutes late, could not be accepted or opened. The low bid was JF Management Group Corp. of Pearl River with a bid of $164,450. The 2nd bid was Peter Camilli and Sons Construction Limited with a bid of $185,146. I have spoken with the principals of JF Management. They understand the scope of work. They have reviewed their bid and are ready to proceed. They understand that it is a prevailing rate project. They understand that they will be required to produce a labor and material payment performance bond. And they have acknowledged the aggressive schedule that's been established for the completion of the project. So with all of that said, our firm would recommend to the town, should the funding be available, that you award it to JF Management Group Corp. in the amount of $164,450. With that, I'll entertain any questions that you have. And there is a letter attached from the president of JF Management confirming my conversation with him regarding his bid and his understanding of the contractual requirements.
But do they have to provide proof that they're registered with the state as a prevailing wage contractor, correct?
We've included in the documents the prevailing rates that would apply to this particular contract. So they don't really need to be registered for that as long as they adhere and provide the required certified payroll records.
They'll get an RPC from Department of Labor with the contract.
Okay,
Okay.
that was
And
my
they
question.
have to certify
That they did
payroll.
it last year, wasn't, it's a requirement now that they somehow.
They'll get the RPC, and they'll have to certify payroll in every pay rack that
Yes.
prevailing wage is paid.
Right.
And
Thank you.
they'll review them and make sure that that's, at least that's on.
Assuming we approve this now, and the contractor says we're prepared to begin work immediately, the aggressive schedule that we're talking about. Hopefully means this can be completed.
May 30th is the date that, assuming this gets awarded by next week, the contractor has until May 30th to complete the project. Yes.
And we have, and maybe Art, you could review or provide a high level description of the work that's gonna be done. I have, or maybe you want to start with what it looks like now? Yeah, so let me, yeah, Nicole provided this to me. So this is what the bathhouse 34 glorious years ago, it was built. These are just some pictures, the main entrance with the 2 bathrooms on either side and a storage area in the middle, correct? That's storage area. It's the back of the building, side. It's the other side. Oops.
Oh, how pretty.
Hold on, I'm getting there. Yeah, that's what the bathroom looks like. Bedroom.
It's almost as lovely as the bathhouse.
It's Spartan.
So in July
word.
2017, town board minutes, this was discussed, updating the current facilities and adding composting toilets. The updates never occurred. That was 2017. So it's about time we do something.
So on the exterior of the building, we're removing the existing texture 111 siding. We're putting on hardy plank that will look like, be very similar to the appearance of the current siding. And it will also match some siding that was replaced on the structure next door. We understand the roof will be replaced with town resources. There is one window missing in the ladies' room men's room, that will be replaced with a new window. The exterior doors to both bathrooms, toilet rooms, will be replaced. The overhead door into the storage area will be replaced. The interior wood finish painted plywood walls will be replaced with an FRP a cleanable material. The fixtures, both the lavatories, the urinals, and the toilets will be replaced. The toilet partitions, which are a phenolic plastic material, will be salvaged, taken out, and then reinstalled when the bathrooms are renovated, toilet rooms are renovated. The floor will have a new epoxy flooring installed. The light fixtures will all be changed with new LEDs. So everything's being reput. There's no reconfigurations being done. Everything is being put back in the same location, just with new state-of-the-art equipment, fixtures, and finishes.
FRP.
It's a plastics-based,
Fiber reinforced plastic.
yes.
Good for the growth of the environment.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Art.
Welcome.
Right. Nicole, did you want to say something, speak tonight? Okay. So,
Just out of curiosity, do you have anything in the works for putting a composting toilet in Vista? Thank you very much.
So we need a motion to approve the bid for the on part and renovation, yes,
and the funding.
funding thereof,
Fund balance.
fund balances previously discussed, so.
Are you motioning?
Yeah, so moved.
Oh, okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call. Rich?
Yeah.
Andrea?
Yes.
Tony, yes.
Dan, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, guys,
Okay,
I have a
next.
hard time spending fund balance, it kills me. Yeah.
That's what it's there for.
Yeah.
You don't have to say control going after you.
Everybody.
Raise the
Night,
tax.
thank you.
Thanks, Art. Okay, next we have, this is also a Nicole item. Approval to appoint a full-time recreation assistant for the senior adult program effective May 1st, 2025.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Next is a resolution approving the highway department materials bid for 2025-2026. So every year, the highway department, and John Winter's here, they go out to bid for multiple materials, including bituminous concrete, laid in place, like liquid materials, crushed stone laid in place, gravel and stone, sand, catch basin tops, grate risers, guide rail, post installation, and yellow and white pavement marking.
So the stuff we're ordering is consistent with prior practices of the highway department.
That is correct.
So
We should need less this year after all the work you did last year.
Well, this is for next year,
Oh, I know.
for this year, yeah.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Next is another highway discussion topic, the two trucks that highway is looking for. John, you want to give us a rundown as to why you need two trucks?
Good evening, thanks for having me. So any given snowstorm, I have, hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Roughly 10, 11 trucks out. Let's call them 9 of them, I'll call big trucks, commercial CDL vehicles. One of them is a 2005 and one of them is a 2007, then a 2008, 2010, and then the rest are all fairly new, 14 up to 20. Being my newest one is a 2020, my predecessor Pete tried to get 2 back in 23. I don't know if it was a COVID thing or whatnot, but International was not taking orders. I looked into other brands due to our very small height of our building. There'd be too much customizing. And I really didn't feel like dealing with other dealers or other manufacturers. So right now, International with a Tenco body works best for our building. So International is now again taking orders. I'd like to proceed with the 2 trucks that were discussed back in 23. They're roughly $279,000 each.
At that time.
Yeah, and I played with some numbers, removed a couple of things. I can get them for $279 now. If I order them now, the cabin chassis will come in the fall. The actual body, the PTO, the dump body, the plow is 18 months out. So if I ordered them today, they wouldn't even start getting assembled for basically 18 months. I wouldn't see them for 2 years.
you take delivery 18 months into it.
Yes, which is one of the reasons I really want to move forward with the 2, not just 1, because they're so hard to get, they take so long to get. And they won't be coming until 2027. So right now, my newest truck that goes out on the average snowstorm is a 2020. We're gonna have a 7-year gap in our fleet. If it wasn't anyone here's fault, but we couldn't order them back in 23, they would have been here now. So if we order 2 today, I'll get 2 in 2027. I'm still not a huge fan of having that 7-year gap in our fleet, but at least it's progress in the right direction. And these trucks, like the 20, I have 2 2019s, they were like $220,000 each. The 2020 was 240 something thousand. These are 280. They only get more and more expensive every year. So I really feel kicking the can down the road just costs us more.
Where are we right now for highway staff as far as CDL operators to take the maximum?
Got 2 foremen, 8 MEOs, the mechanic. And so I have every bit of 10 at the moment. I have 9 trucks. The one road we do in Kitchewan, we use a 550 because that gets sanded. So it's just the one road, we just sand it with a smaller truck.
And the truck
And like roughly each guy out there is doing like 8 to 10 miles, like center lane miles. So they go out, they're responsible for like 8 to 10 miles each. So each truck is in charge of that, but you got to get to and from. So from here to Golden's Bridge, we're not salting the state roads, but you got to do the Colony, Lake Katona. You got a guy doing Kitchewan.
Division of.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if they're actually in charge of like 8 to 10 miles each guy. Bless you.
Thank you. Nicole, and Nicole, sorry, Annie. Yeah. I'm looking at the two of you. Sorry about that. I know that there's been some conversation back and forth about the fact that when Peter Rippinger was still in office, that this board voted to bond for the two trucks, and then we ran into some difficulty, and there may or may not have been some changes in that. Could we just please, because I still, even though we've been communicating back and forth, I still don't understand where all the money went that we resolved to bond for to cover the two trucks. Could you just help us out there?
So I was not part of this bond ban issue, but what we have what was sought out was the $614,000. That was what the resolution was for, but
Yes.
that was never proceeded with in the bond paperwork. All that went after of that 614,000 was $56,000 for a hot box. And then there was $279,000 issued of new money in 2024 for one truck. That's
So
what actually came through the bond
From
paperwork.
what we can tell, we voted to bond for two trucks. We couldn't get them for whatever reason in the hot box. But when we went out for our bonds, we didn't include them.
No, and I think Tony had some conversations about lead times and the possibility of leasing, and it just seems like something was kind of parked and never finalized.
Yeah, so
Did we ever vote not to include it in our bond? Like, was that ever?
we voted for, we passed a bond resolution for 614,000.
Yes.
And at the time, when Peter wanted the two trucks, we told him order one. And,
Yes.
but there was a very long lead time, so I thought he actually placed the order,
Yeah, they weren't taking orders until this year.
but they didn't, I guess they didn't,
But
yeah.
you, no matter
John found out
how
they didn't,
bad you wanted,
yeah.
you couldn't place.
So what we did from that 604, what we did do is purchase the hot box for 56,000. And that's the only money that we borrowed.
Right, because
And
we
just
passed,
getting was already
just to recap for everybody, when we pass a bond resolution for a certain amount, that doesn't mean that we actually have to borrow it. It's just that we're asking approval
Authority.
for the authority to borrow. So what I'm hearing now is that we didn't exercise the authority to borrow because we couldn't order the trucks at the time. So that kind of just went away. So it's not like we borrowed the money and it
No.
disappeared.
No, the money was
Right?
never borrowed.
Greg, there's no timetable for exercising the authority on that, is there?
In terms of the borrowing itself? Or the actual
Like the fact
purchase?
that we authorized this, the six, whatever, back in 23. It's
No,
still-
your authorization is still good until it's rescinded.
Okay.
Your authorization.
And we didn't.
Right, so what we found
Unless it's
out,
rescinded, not until.
yeah, so then when we did the 2024 bond last year, we had 279,000 allocated for that one truck. And we didn't spend it. Together with some other unspent money for highway, we have a total of borrowed funds sitting in the bank of 424,226.
So we exercised
highway.
part of that authority last year but we still couldn't order the truck until this year I'm just putting the pieces together,
yeah.
and until such time as we have an adequate expenditure line in the highway budget for capital purchases that we've heard Dan mention.
It wouldn't be in the
numerous
budget, though, it'd be a
times for the year.
separate-
No,
yeah.
in the budget, for the highway. This is what we have until that's fine. Okay.
Yeah, 424,000.
So we need, plus the hot box, we need to what?
The hot
Like
box,
borrow another one- another one?
happened.
Right, so another 160 or 170.
146 is what we need. But we do have about 70,000 in the
Of
highway fund.
Budget savings from last year, expense line items within the highway budget that came in under budget, so technically,
We're just short of another 80, short of 100.
right.
For two.
For two trucks, right? Now, John did buy us another truck, and I questioned him on that, the one from Southeast for $25,000. And my question was, could we get away with just ordering the one truck that we had already approved? and outfit the southeast truck for plowing.
I had that same conversation with them earlier today.
Yeah.
And it was a big resounding no.
And the reason it was no is because it's an old truck, 20-year-old truck. Yeah, if you don't mind, yeah, explain why we can't use that.
Musical podiums.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice a little. Yeah, so that truck is a great truck. It does everything we ask of it. It goes out almost every single day, but it's 20 years old. It's used in the summer. It was an old military truck. It's never had a plow on it. It doesn't have the body. All our trucks in the dump body, we don't put Sanders in them other than one F-550. In the actual dump body is a chain conveyor, and then there's a spinner below it, and it actually brings the sand or salt to the front of the truck and then dumps it on the spinner, puts it on the road. That truck is not equipped with any of that stuff. It doesn't have a plow. It doesn't have any of the required things to do that. So I don't think it's in the town's best interest to retrofit that old of a truck. And that is one of the reasons it's in such good shape is, other than tree work in the winter, it doesn't really go out in the winter.
right.
But all summer long, it's all in dirt or it's all in logs or rocks. So it's been a great asset to the department, but it's to me, in my eyes, it's too old to dump that kind of money into.
Right.
What's the projected life expectancy of the two trucks we're looking at?
I mean, I got 20-year-old trucks on the road right now, so I'd love to see another 20 years. I admire all my guys, take pretty good care of the trucks. Day after a snowstorm, if not 2 days after, everything's getting washed. All those trucks are kept indoors. That was one of the reasons I didn't want to go with a different brand, is it would have been too tall to keep inside. And we in the winter, we leave them full of salt. So if, in the middle of the night it starts snowing, or the police department calls me, a road's icy, no one has to drive down to the dome and fill the truck with salt. They show up, open the door, and they're out there and they can salt. So all those trucks stay inside and they're well taken care of. So I would like to see another 20 years. That's another thing, is these older trucks are just harder and harder to get parts for. We're calling multiple different places, getting, cross-referencing part numbers, and, these older trucks are just, even like a 2009 F-350 doesn't sound old. But the other day I needed an instrument cluster for one. I was calling around for hours. I got one out of Texas. So a 2009 don't sound old, but when you go to order parts for something, it's a pain in the butt.
So would these two trucks potentially replace the two older trucks in your fleet?
Yeah, I would probably get
2005
rid
and
of,
the 2006.
there's another one that's, I believe, either a 99 or 2000 that we really just use for logs. We leave the tailgate
That's
down
the
on it.
Sterling?
Yeah, the
Sterling?
three older ones are all Sterling.
Yeah,
But that one hasn't plowed or salted in years. It's just, we don't even put the plow on it. All the moving parts haven't been used in years. We just use it for a dump truck in the summer.
right.
That would definitely be first on the chopping block. And then I would probably get rid of one other one. The other thing is I don't have any alternate. So if one of my trucks blows a hydraulic line and we don't have the fitting to make it 3 a.m, or, we have a significant repair we can't do. Now I'm gonna try to make up that route with two like little F-550s or something. The bordering guy, one guy in Vista, he calls the other two guys in Vista, hey, I'm down.
Right.
And they team up on it. Another thing that I really like about the new trucks is everything, as frustrating as it is to fix, everything's computerized. So that spinner, when I laugh not to beat up New York State DOT, but we've all been behind them when they're at a red light and that spinner's going, making a pile of salt. Now, that wouldn't happen with any of these trucks. They're speed calibrated. So when they're going around Truesdale going slow, the conveyor, the spinner are all going at the appropriate speed. When they go down Mead Street, it's calculated per tons per mile. So it's dialed in more accurately. All our lake communities that we care about, we can put a little less salt on, the appropriate amount. One snowstorm, I get a complaint, we didn't salt enough. The next snowstorm, I get a complaint, we salted too much.
Right.
These trucks really, they're really dialed in. We use a lot less salt with the newer trucks.
Right. Yeah,
Guys come back You know, with it was still like one loader bucket in the truck, as opposed to an older truck is gonna use the whole dump
Right.
body per salt run.
So to make this happen, we need to do a fund transfer from general fund to highway fund for you to purchase these two trucks.
And then how would it work with the reserves that I didn't utilize last year?
Well,
So it's like an Annie question to lump that all back together.
Yeah, that's an Annie question, but the reserve, well, I'll let Annie.
Come on down.
So that's what I was referring to, were your budget savings for last year, that technically we can look at the actual account, the Chase Bank account, and see what we have left, because the tax levy, the tax bills are being collected now. We're gonna distribute the tax levy to all the different funds. So what he has left before I make that transfer for the tax levy is technically what he has left over from his savings for last year. So that, when I last checked, was around 70,000. So that's what Tony is saying, the difference between the extra cost of the 140 would be a transfer from the general fund to cover the additional cost of the total cost of the
Right.
trucks with the bonding money that we have left over.
So it'd be 146 minus the 70.
Right.
So that's 76. I would say, not to exceed $80,000 as a transfer.
So second.
So I'd like to go ahead and
You only authorizing the transfer?
I'm
Right now.
authorizing the transfer.
Okay.
He has already, so the trucks, correct me if I'm wrong,
On a dog truck.
Okay,
right?
they're state bid.
And the
That's what I want to know.
But so we should approve the purchase, right, of both trucks here as well. I mean, one was already approved back, whatever,
Yeah.
so 2024.
It's entirely up to you.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure that it's.
Yeah.
State bid or approved bid.
Yeah.
And for, so,
Right, I knew there was in one of those contracts, but yeah, okay. So we could do a motion for both. For the purchase, I'd like to go ahead and motion to allow our highway superintendent to purchase both trucks off of one of the state contracts, Onondaga, or what was the other?
they're both on it.
They're both, okay.
The builder and.
They're both on Onondaga contract,
And
and
the transfer.
and the transfer from the general fund to the highway fund of not to exceed $80,000.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Oh, roll call. Dan?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, you may go now.
Oh, don't go yet. I do have a question for him. Yeah,
You have a question for John?
I do. Okay, got it. John,
Sorry, can I just say one more thing before I forget?
you want to say thank you?
Thank you. The most recent quote I had sent was like 284 or 283. There's a thing called floor plan on there, which I wrote in that email we can avoid as long as we write a check for the truck and we write a check for the builder. And that's basically because knowing it takes that 18 months to get all the equipment and stuff. The international dealer, if we were just writing them the check, they would be like floating the money for the build of the truck. And they're willing to waive that as long as we pay for the truck when it's ready. And then it's gonna be, 6 months to a year till it's getting built. We write a check for that stuff. So it'll be one check to international, one to Amthor, the truck builder.
And that's
both
like
on
it just
Onondaga
stays in our
contract.
bank account until that time.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying is, for transparency, that there'll be a check written to the builder, a check written to the truck company.
So my
So does that? So there's two checks, two separate purchases. Or is it one purchase order to the truck?
Well, what I'm saying is normally you would just write one check to international, they would write a check to Amthor who builds the
Yeah.
truck. That costs $4,000 extra per truck. So
Okay.
to avoid that, when we buy the truck just like I did with that hook lift.
Yeah,
We bought the truck from Ford and then it got built by Ness Automotive in Danbury.
mhm,
This is the same thing. It saves us a little bit of money.
right,
Well, not a little bit, $8,000, so,
Yeah.
yeah. I just wanted to explain that.
is that's good?
It's coming
So
from the same
resolution
vendor.
covers that?
Same.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine, I was just,
So what do you got?
My question is, what's the update with regards to the paving plan for the column? Like, where are we? What's our expectation of start date, if any?
Most definitely next summer. I met with Jan and Joe, Friday. And we decided, well, they decided, they're the engineers, where the curbs will go, where the catch basins will go. Where water will outfall, all that stuff. We walked all 3 roads, we drew it down. And they will work on their engineering. I'm still waiting on a permit for the section, for everyone at home, the section of Old Church Lane I plan to pave due to serious erosion concern. And that was submitted back in October, and they had already drawn everything from years before when they wanted to pave and people didn't want the road paved. So the fact that the engineering was already done and they submitted it in October and it's taken this long for DEC and DEP to get back, I should have that permit soon. But knowing this all has to be drawn and then submitted, it's gonna be a long time.
So it's
I
not
mean,
coming out of this.
And I asked, is it at least good for 2 years? And Kellard said yes. So whenever we get it, like say we got it this time of year or middle of summer when we're already paving, it's good for at least 2 years and there's like, it's extendable. So once we get it, you know, whether it's right away or,
The likelihood of it coming out of this year's paving budget and it happening this year is slim to none.
yeah, and that's nothing to do with anyone in this room. That's New York DEC and DEP. Yeah.
Thank you.
There turn out to be, is there any like easement stuff that has to happen with all these catch basins?
Well, that's where they're gonna draw and decide where it goes. And then Jeremy said, the president of the colony there said he was willing to work with us on easements.
Okay, that's good.
Because
Yeah.
I guess, well, we don't have a right of way in there, but they seem to say that they have, like, I don't wanna call it an HOA, whatever it is.
Once you get the design,
Yeah,
then,
And then we'll worry about,
yeah, you.
yeah, and we don't know.
Private interest that you need to
Right.
get.
Cause some catch basins could be in the traveled way, all the pipe's gonna be under the road.
Even the
But-
HOA would have to give you an easement,
right, exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
still an owner, right? If they own it.
There's still a process to.
Yeah,
Okay.
they were more than willing to work with us on that, so,
All
yeah.
right,
All right,
thank you.
have a good night.
You too. Okay, next we have resolution approving the bid to repair Wild Oaks grinder. So Wild Oaks sewer, there's a part called the grinder pump, which is what takes stuff that comes out of the the wastewater and grinds it before it goes into the second step, clarifier or something.
Common,
Yeah, this is the combinator,
it's common.
correct.
I love
Very
the
good.
Process.
Very good, yeah. No, I actually saw it last. You can have a look. It is a lovely process, but so we put this out to bid because it exceeded, you know, per our procurement process. And we have 3 bids, one for 29,700 from a vendor that has done work for us before. The other one is 56,617. And then the third that was not in the agenda packet, but we did receive via email as a response to the BidNet bid listing, was 58,750. So you have 2 of them at over 56,000 and one at 29,000.
And
And-
just to be clear, this is only, this
for the-
comes out of the district.
The Wild Oaks Sewer District, correct. So it's coming out of that fund.
Seems like a.
Annie, you don't have to stay, sorry. You can go for me, unless anyone has, yeah, you can go with them. Thank you. No.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
So yeah, so I like to go, and I had VRI, they're very familiar with this and the company that's gonna be doing the work. So I'd like to go ahead and motion that we move forward with the proposal from Water Services, Inc. for $29,700 to replace and install the grinder.
Second,
Discussion. Okay, roll call. Dan?
right, hi.
Aye. Andrea?
Bye.
Okay, thanks. So that's done. Okay, last thing on the item, and I don't know, Linda Ray is not here. Is she on Zoom by any chance, Janet?
There's a Linda on there, I'm thinking that.
Yeah, let's, why don't you let her, and so this is the short-term rentals.
Hey, Linda, I'm unmuting you.
Hmm.
Do you need me to try to figure out how to do the video or?
No,
is that
you're
okay?
good. Yep,
No, it's,
you're good.
it's okay, it's okay,
It's
Linda.
okay? Okay,
Yeah,
good.
so
Well,
why don't you kick it off, yeah, provide your summary of what the housing committee put together here, and
oh, okay, sure. Yeah. My co-chair, Linda Presswolf, was unable to attend tonight, but but I wanted to give you some background on how excuse me, my voice is a little weird tonight, how the committee arrived at the recommendations that we submitted to you. We began by researching regulations in a number of other towns, Westchester, nearby counties, and also Connecticut. And then we weighed those against the zoning recommendations of the Lewisboro Comprehensive Plan Consultant.
Linda, could you just step back a little from big picture? We're talking about short-term rentals, right? Can you just
We are indeed, sorry, yes.
the topic sense about what we're talking about in the town of Lewisboro?
What?
It's like what we're talking about in the town of Lewisboro. We're talking about
The
short.
town of Lewisboro, yeah, Tony asked us to take a look at short-term rentals and see if we could come up with some recommendations for regulating them. So we did look at, we looked at Irvington, Putnam Valley, Rhinebeck, that's in Dutchess, and two or three in Ulster, New Paltz, Rochester, and Essex, Connecticut, and one in Orange County too. And we consulted with Lewisboro Building Inspector Kevin Kelly, who attended one of our meetings and shared his expertise and also his own zoning recommendations on these short-term rentals. And he also was the one who gave us the Essex zoning regulations that I just mentioned. We also were lucky to have one of our members is an architect, Paul Dennis, and that was really invaluable to have somebody with wide knowledge of zoning and building codes in New York and Connecticut and in this area. We also had quite a few complaints brought to our attention from residents in regard to the disturbance caused to neighborhoods by these short-term rentals here in town.
Linda, what is that? Does short term have a certain definition? We talking a certain number of days?
it's in the chart.
I just so everybody can hear.
Yeah, it's a less than 30 days.
Okay.
That's per state law. So, and you may also have heard complaints, or maybe you've even experienced some of these things yourselves, but particularly in the lake communities, where houses are often closer together, people cited large, noisy parties. And actually, some of these places are advertised if you go on Airbnb as wonderful party venues. So, but there are fireworks, parking is crazy, garbage overflows. You get the picture. So, and then we were really looking for a balance between owners' rights to use their own property as they wish, but also with the rights of neighbors to live in peace in their own homes. And then finally, we also took into consideration the kind of regulations that might be appropriate for a town like ours, a semi-rural town, with actually a tremendous variety of different kinds of neighborhoods. And then we came to a consensus, I have to admit, over many months of discussion. And so we all agreed on those recommendations that we submitted to you.
Yeah,
And you have them there?
yeah, we're here, Linda. So so I think for tonight, just so the board is aware, we're not making a decision on this tonight. We just want to make sure everyone goes back, takes a look at it. It has been available. I have distributed it to the entire board. But if there is any feedback or any recommendations that you want to provide back to the housing committee, please do so. And if you have any questions now that you want to bring up,
So in other words, these are kind of the basic principles.
These are the base- yeah,
Once we
the
agree on the
baseline.
basic principles, then we go back and.
these will be translated to
To
town
code.
code, right?
So what, that, we have, there's no draft.
No,
town code.
This is
Not yet.
just like,
It's
let's
just
get our
recommendations.
basic ideas, yeah. I think one of the key elements here, I think, is the owner occupied thing is a big sort of binary decision, right? You know, are you allowing people to just buy these as investment properties and they don't live there? Or is it people that, you know, live there, but they let it out sometimes and it helps them to fund, you know, to
Right.
stay in the town or whatever. So that, I just want to point that
But I think
out.
the other piece, and I don't know, Linda, if this was taken into consideration, the state has its own laws regarding short-term rentals that we need to abide by, or the homeowner does. So if they are using, and I don't know specific details, but there's the equivalent of like a residency tax, or it's similar to like what hotels charge.
Yes, and this is not, does not conflict with those regulations, and they're pretty basic. They don't really go as far into all the various areas that I think that we should here in Lewisboro.
Right, but we would need to keep track and have homeowners register their homes if they're gonna,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
so we have to track that, and then we gotta figure out how that's gonna be done. And who's gonna do it? I think it, you know, maybe fall to the building department as well. I say as well because they currently track other things. Like the septic pump outs, that's part of, you know, with an
Which is-
application, they also track inspections, like fire inspections. And so, yeah, so we need to have a process in place and a recommendation out to, or guidelines to homeowners to say, okay, this is what you need to do if you're gonna be renting out your house under these terms.
Two quick, number one, Linda, you were mentioning as far as Airbnbs, is there a range of what committee is seeing as far as postings, how many homes in the community on a, you know, an average or on a periodic basis or on, or rent?
Yes, there's several hundred and at any given time. If you go on to Airbnb or VRBO, and some communities limit the number. But we decided not to weigh in on that, except to ask that you know, consider it as well as to whether you want to limit the number. It's really more that they're concentrated in certain communities, certain neighborhoods. The lake, as I said before, the lake communities. So there are large areas of town, at least where none of us could find any when we went on to Airbnb, and others where there are quite a few, and they're not always listed for every season. It's fairly complex.
Now, I need a refresher, because we have a bed and breakfast, right?
Mhm.
Law that we put on the books not too many years ago, which, so anybody's ever applied for, really, yeah. So
Bed and breakfast is quite different.
It's different, that's the owner lives there.
that's an automatic by definition, so owner
Right.
occupied, and that's what they're talking about.
Right.
That.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware of situations where people will have ability to like leave for a month, then they, you know, they rent it out for a month and then they're back in. So it's just the same place as opposed to bed and breakfast where maybe, you know, you're living in this part of the place and then there's rooms over here that you rent out. I think there's some.
Right, I mean,
distinction.
this is limited to 30 days or less. We're talking about, I mean, we have some wedding venues that are local many times. Especially when there's a large number of guests coming from out of town, they'll rent homes for the wedding party, etc. You know, an event at Le Chateau or something like that. So that I've heard is a common occurrence, especially in some of the, in our lakes.
Like, for example, I know when they have different parts of the, big golf tournaments, right, in different areas in Westchester, and people rent their homes, their driveways, or right for the things that go on. That's, I guess, just a matter of for a week or 30 days. So the complaints that you received under the committee did, are they in any kind of categories? Is it mostly noise? Is it, that's what it's predominantly involving?
I'd say noise was the one that came up the most often. I guess gathered that there was a big 4th of July party last weekend that brought somebody to our meeting. I mean, it was a huge party, lots of guests, and the fireworks and music and all that. But also too many cars and garbage that came in. People were very annoyed by the overflowing garbage, cans. S- and I guess maybe some of the comments went a little farther in that they felt that these various nuisances really changed the feeling of their neighborhood, not for the better. So.
Okay, so I guess next steps, Linda, is that the board will review these and will provide feedback.
Sure.
And then based on that feedback, we can draft up the language for the.
Tony, you do have the consultant recommendations, right? And also Kevin's? Because we assumed ours would be one of, not the only recommendation. I mean, ours differs a little bit from both of those. So you might want to just take all three and compare them and take a look and see what you think makes the most sense to you. Is there a problem with audio? I'm not getting any audio here.
Can you hear me, Linda?
Oh, just now, yeah, it's back. Thanks.
Yeah, so
I just said maybe we can just put them all in one email. I was asking Tony, put all three into one email to the rest of us so we could see it all in one place and compare. That's all.
That would be a good idea, like a spreadsheet.
Yes.
and to be honest, Linda, I thought that's what this was.
Oh, no, sorry about that. I can work
'Cause-
on that if you would like.
Yeah,
Um,
because
I mean, that's what we did when we researched all those towns. We had them in one huge spreadsheet, and it makes it easier to see what the differences are. So
you have
sure.
that spreadsheet.
Well, I have, no, I don't have a spreadsheet that compares the consultant and Kevin's and our recommendations. We used a pretty much of a homemade spreadsheet to show all the different towns that we consulted, and we incorporated that into our own recommendations.
I think if we can go through, these are like the extracted key elements, and if we can kind of get on one page on those, we can then like say, okay, ask our attorney to, or the fellow who's working on our zoning codes to say, okay, take these and graph these in there and make us something.
Dan, do you have a institutional memory recollection as to what the steering committee had to say about this as part of the process, if anything?
About this part of the process?
No, as part of their process.
I think from the beginning, we carved it out.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm not quite sure if they had any specific recommendations. There may have been, but I think pretty early on in the process, we carved it out.
Yeah, they didn't have like content level.
Right.
Inputs for that. They were focused more on the processes of things. Yeah.
But are you talking about the consultant?
Yes.
Yeah, but they did have very specific ones for Lewisboro, so,
Yeah, they have a draft.
in draft form.
Yeah, so we have a draft from them. We have, also Kevin's input, so I think this leave, if we can get the principles settled, we can kind of leave it to the attorney to like give us something that reflects all those.
Mhm.
I mean, I remember looking at the one from, I think it was Essex, Connecticut, and if I recall, it was a pretty good, pretty well packaged set of rules.
So let's just put everything in one place and give it to everybody, that's all. That's
Yeah,
all we
yeah.
need to do. We're not
Like that
making a
one, we
decision
can
on
start.
this
Right, no, but yeah,
anytime soon, and we still got lots of things like
I was just,
excavation
yeah.
and steep slopes and all those things.
The
that
point I
we've
was gonna
done.
say is because if that code is already in place, we could just redline it with the stuff that is here, for example, from the housing committee. And then we
Yes.
can have one document that's already in the format of the code that we can work
Correct.
with.
Tony, do you want me to send you, one of our big spreadsheets listing some of these other towns?
Sure, yeah.
We kind of thought you might like us to do the legwork, so.
Actually, I would.
And they have.
Okay.
Yes, but if
You
you,
already did it, it's right here.
but if you have that spreadsheet with that additional legwork, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'll send that in.
Places like Peach Lake and Lake Mayapack, do they have anything?
Carnival just passed, it's, after about 5.5 years just passed, its code revisions. There are short-term rentals, some of the, restrictions, no private roads. So that there's not, in the lake communities, a lot of those roads are not, town roads. But that just got passed, honestly, I think, March 19th. I don't know that North Salem has it. Peace Lake is like a condo, a co-op. It's a cooperative ownership, they're mostly.
HOAs. Yeah.
But I can look at that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're taking
All right, so more to come on that. All right, let's move on. Public comment number 2 for new business only. Anybody here? How about on Zoom? You sure?
Barbara Mangione, I'm asking you to unmute.
How was that?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to go back to an item under new business where you spoke about trying to get a grant, a $1 million grant to go towards the pickleball courts, because you mentioned that the approximate cost is $963. You have $225 in CREST grants. I also believe from prior meetings you have a $50,000 private donation. So that would leave a little under $700,000 that's needed for the remainder of the estimated cost. So basically, if that money doesn't come through, if we don't get that grant, fingers crossed we do, it would mean another $700,000 that, from what I was hearing tonight, you may have to take from the fund balance, along with another 500 and something $1,000 for the timber frame, $165,000 for the On a True bathroom. My concern is that this fund balance is quickly being depleted. We used a chunk of it last year to come in under the tax cap. I think we have one other thing maybe that's going to go towards that. And we really need to focus on infrastructure and not kind of piecemeal out, 400,000 here, 500,000 there. Tonight alone, if you're talking about the timber frame and those other things I mentioned, you're at 1.45 million again, coming out of that. So, I'm just asking as a resident that we keep our eye on what we really need. I'm not saying we don't need the timber frame, we need that. But you may want to rethink, I hate to say it, you may want to rethink the pickleball courts if that grant doesn't come through. I know at the last Parks and Rec meeting, Peter Cipriano mentioned something about rather than taking a spot in the town park that has to be excavated and refilled or whatever, that perhaps something could be done on the other side of town near Vista where there's flat surfaces that can be repurposed into pickleball courts, probably at a much lower cost. That's it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Barbara. Carol Cernak, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi, it's Carol Cernak in South Salem, New York. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Carol.
Okay. I just want to really award John Winter and the Highway Department, and not just John Winter, but the entire Highway Department for stepping up and figuring out what needs to be done with saving the town loads of money without the portable timber operation plant and thinking outside the box. And he's done a great, 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 great job. I mean, this is what I was asking for a long, long time. The other thing is, I think whatever John Winter wants for his trucks, you need to give him. He's a wise man. He's a humble man. And you need to pretty much give him what he thinks to take care of this community, because he doesn't just care about himself, he cares about the community. And lastly, I'll say goodbye.
All right, thanks, Carol.
Thanks, Scott.
That's it.
That's it. Okay. Okay, next we have approval of claims. I'd like to go ahead and motion to approval of claims. Do I have a second? Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Polling of the board, we'll start with Rich.
I just want to thank Adam Rhodes for his generosity to LPD. Most recently with that very generous donation. Looking forward to its new LPD. Thank you very much for your contribution. We appreciate it. Happy Passover to those who observe, myself, and the beginning of Holy Week. Well, best of health and great set of family celebrations.
Andrew.
Happy Passover, happy Easter week to everyone as well. A few things. There's been a lot of chatter out there in the social media land regarding our meeting last week having to do potentially with the infrastructure buildings. I want to talk a little bit about the school district. It was brought to my attention. And I heard Glenda Faber earlier indicate that someone on Facebook indicated that the town board has some sort of dysfunction. And I think to speak to that, my issue has always been the sharing of information and transparency. And it's my understanding that, Tony, that you knew that this lease wasn't going to be renewed and then we'd be out of there at the very least 22 months ago. And for the most part, myself as a town board member, the first time I heard about that is following the failure for them to renew our lease last year, which was in August. It's my understanding that we've been renewing year to year, and in August of last year, we went month to month. So even at the very least, that should have been an indication that they weren't going to renew our lease. And we should have been dealing with this a long time ago. And I've gotten reports back from people who've sat on the various committees indicating from day one, the finance committee for the Board of Education has said in no uncertain terms were they ever planning on selling that property. I look back and I have to say that I criticize now the call to move our town offices from the shopping center to the school district. It was always going to be temporary, and no one ever thought to think ahead and plan. And now, we receive an email from the school board specifically saying that they'll no longer make the building available to our Parks and Rec department as of August of this year, and no longer available to us in December of this year. And we have nowhere to go. And this is gonna be a huge, huge cost, which I was saying, on the taxpayers. It's also been brought to my attention that the school district is having an issue with the county renewing their C of Os for various reasons, including Department of Health, water issues, et cetera. And that I was informed by people sitting on the committee that they're not, what this town pays in rent to the school district doesn't even cover their cost of keeping the building open. And it costs them less money to basically quote unquote mothball the building. And they have no intentions of even talking about reopening that building for preschool or otherwise, for which plans have yet to be provided until 2029 or 2030. That the sewer system there they feed it dog food in order to keep it running, because there has to be a certain amount of output in order to keep the system from failing, and that the school district incurs the cost of basically feeding the sewer system dog food on a regular basis in order to keep it in working order. And so it's becoming more and more clear that this town board, whether, has been poorly informed as to the likelihood of us being able to remain there. And there's no way in any manner, shape, or form that we're gonna have someplace outfitted by the end of this year for us to go to. And I think that it's my understanding that nobody from the school district wishes to come here and have a conversation with us. And to that end, that I think that for transparency purposes, I can think of at least one person who would be more than willing to come and inform this board of the timeline from start to finish, the conversations that have been had at the school board level, at the committee level, having to deal with not only Lewisboro Elementary School, but the building over on the Vista side of town, that they've been there from the beginning, and they have a wealth of information and knowledge, a wealth of information as to the timeline and where the town should have first taken steps to do something about this years ago. So I'm gonna ask that for the next meeting's agenda, that we invite Mike Lynch, who sat on the committees for years, to come in and give the town board a presentation and give us some light as to this timeline and the facts and circumstances leading up to the predicament that we're in today. Because not only is this going to cost the taxpayers money on our side, the town side, but whatever the school district decides to do with that building is going to cost millions of dollars as well. And it seems to me that there's a good chance that that burden and the burden of building new infrastructure for our town offices is going to fall on the taxpayer at the same time. So I think that we need to backtrack and get a good idea of how we got here to give us a better idea of where we need to go. So I guess that's a motion to add it to the next town board agenda.
Well, we need a motion for it, any board member could
I
have
just-
an agenda, right?
Yeah, you could just submit excuse me, an email to us with specific request.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, It's actually, in Mike Lynch, we talked about aside from.
Mike and I have had several discussions, so yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, because also, institutional memory, having been former
Right.
board member himself, familiar with what a town was contemplating over
And you're
a long
next.
period of time. Too.
Yeah, I don't know whether to respond to that. I mean, it's been clear that we weren't going to be able to stay there for a long time. There are discussions going on that are, have to do with real estate and are in executive session, so we can't kind of lend the rest of the context to this. You just put out part of it and people don't know the other parts of it, so I can't really speak to that. Yeah, other than that, thanks again to Adam, as Rich said, this is amazing and amazingly timely. Because we do need to have some of those upfront soft costs around design and figuring out the schema for that, so that's an amazing help. And end of an era with Frank's Secret. I've known Frank for going on half a century now, so.
Really?
Yeah, so we're gonna miss him. And Let's see. Yeah, that's.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so just on the school district thing, so the dates you mentioned are not 100% correct. Yes, we've known since the new superintendent came in, and in fact, it was when the outgoing superintendent had his last Board of Ed meeting that, and that was like June of last year, that we were told that we knew already that their maintenance was exceeding the cost of our rent. We knew just before that meeting that they were having their attorney put together an agreement that would encompass all the amendments, and that's what we were waiting for. That didn't happen. And when the new superintendent came in, I was informed that that was not going to happen, and that we needed to start considering Plan B. Having those discussions with them in terms of, potential opportunity of us owning the building, that was still ongoing. And then it led to keeping parts of it for PD and court, for example, and Parks and Rec. And as of the latest discussion I had with them last month, that was still in play until we got the email last week that said 12/31. What happened between my meeting and at that email, I don't know what triggered that, but obviously something did. And we have, let me just finish my call.
Confirmation about her program, and I think that's what, because she needed to know.
Oh, of course, I've had her.
Right, but I think
meetings.
that was in
Yeah.
response to her email to them to confirm, and then we ended up with. the email.
Actually, before that, it was my email, but yeah. But anyway, there was a discussions about, and still are, we're meeting again before Memorial Day, it was in that same email, superintendent myself, to discuss where we are, what options exist. Yes, they're not gonna convey the building, we've determined that to us. They're not gonna allow us to use the building for municipal offices. So we do have to start looking at other options, like the options that we discussed at our last meeting, last week. Let me finish my polling. Okay. So next so that's that. Next I have from our receiver of taxes, a gentle reminder to anyone who still needs to pay their 2025 town and county tax bill directly to the town, to get your payment into the tax office by or before April 30th. And you want to make this deadline in order to avoid the late penalty. There are lots of options for payment. So if anyone has any questions or is not sure where they put their tax bill or needs another copy sent to them, please call the tax office at 914-763-3100. The other thing I have is related to our parks, our highway department. We had a person that had reached out to my office regarding the unsightliness of a certain section of our highway department, the storage area, machines that are kept in the open. And as a result of that, John and I walked the grounds, came up with a plan. He's doing this, and someone actually emailed to say, I'm so excited about all the work going on in your yard. This is an email directly to John, copied me. I've been watching all the clearing out you men are doing, and it looks much better already. I completely agree that the fence should be higher. So there's going to be fencing, there's going to be planting of trees, which will further screen the storage barn that the highway department uses. And they go on to say, thanks so much for taking on this long overdue project. Your work will be appreciated by many in town. South Salem Pride, I'm loving it.
I drove around tonight.
How does it look?
Amazing.
Yeah, it's night and day.
Unbelievable.
Okay, next I have, this is regarding Ed Delaney, who passed away. Ed was an architect with Bibbo Associates and former employee with the County Department of Health. He passed away on March 31st, unfortunately. Ed was a town resident, well-known in town. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family, including his wife, Gail. Gail, his wife of 40 years, and his brother, Michael. Donations can be made in his memory to the Parks and Recreation Department with checks payable to the town of Lewisboro and mailed to 99 Elmwood Road, South Salem, New York. This is a note from Deirdre, our receiver of taxes. She said, Ed Delaney was an outstanding human known for his skill, depth of knowledge, practicality in the face of immense bureaucracy, and his marvelous sense of humor. Ed loved Lewisboro and his cherished home on Lake Wacabuck. His favorite pastime was golf. Deirdre first met Ed back when he worked at the Westchester County Department of Health because a close friend of Deirdre reported directly to him there for many years. He was a wonderful boss to Deirdre's friend and so valued at Westchester County. He was greatly missed at the county when he left to work for Bibbo. Our town, my heart is now going out to his dear friends and colleagues, and especially to Gail. who's feeling Ed's great loss. Our town is certainly the poorer for having no Ed Delaney in it, but it will be nice to know he's buried nearby in the town cemetery because he really loved Lewisboro. Our building inspector, Kevin Kelly, also knew Ed for 38 years and worked closely with him on various projects, and knew Ed is a great man. I personally had the opportunity to work with Ed after being introduced to Ed by Peter Parsons about four years ago, almost 5. Ed provided his services to the Golden Bridge Shopping Center. He and I attended meetings there with the shopping center manager and the owner, where we brainstormed the potential of developing a mixed-use hamlet center and expanding the shopping center and what they offer to the community. And of course, Ed's expertise in sewer and septic systems from his years at the Department of Health was very valuable. As recent as late last year, I personally reached out to Ed to tap into his county DOH, Department of Health knowledge related to septic systems. Ed always made himself available to assist as needed.
Just want to chime in, and I didn't even know about it. I was one of my, I think basically my first volunteer opportunity in the town was with the Open Space Advisory Committee, which is what it was called then. And Ed was the chair of that. And all the things that we'll talk about, his depth of knowledge, his sense of humor, and actually his energy and his passion for what that committee was doing just really it was great to be around, and kind of actually got me into it, wanted me to get more and more involved in the community, and Ed, in that really time that I was in the community, was a big part of that. So, sort of.
His service was packed with people from all, it was like, everybody knows him from some window. And then you saw all the people like he affected and.
Right.
So, really finding it was incredible.
Yep. Okay.
I just had one, if I can, just actually just one fact that I was confused about, which we're talking about the just make sure I'm back straight, with the LES space that for us to use it, the only way that you're understanding that can happen is if they sold it to us.
Or continue leasing it to us.
So that's, so I mean, they can have, we can state that there's no prohibition.
It's property of the school district, which is paid for by taxes for Bedford, North Salem, Pound Ridge, and Lewisboro.
Right, but it's my understanding they're not gonna have their C of Os renewed due to water treatment issues. If that's the case.
That's the first I hear that. Water issues is a do not drink advisory with Meadow Pond, and they still operate as a school. They just don't drink the water.
I understand that.
Yeah. I know that New York State is what issues the C of O. But that, I did not know that was the reason.
Regardless, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the building to make it.
Correct.
Functional, and it's like, that decision to put money into that building as it is versus.
Yeah, the more I think of it, it doesn't make sense for us anymore. Yeah. And now that we have other options, we should be pursuing those other options and not just the LES building.
Perhaps maybe Tony, you can extend an invitation since you've had a conversation with the superintendent, maybe to invite him here. And
I think you already did that.
What's that?
I think you had already done that. And in his email, he said.
I put it out there, but
Yeah. Okay.
So, coming, if you can extend an invitation, maybe you'll come and, speak to the greater community.
I can ask him, but I believe that was addressed at the Board of Ed meeting Thursday as a result of your request.
Well, I watched the video. He didn't say I'm not coming, not going to come to the town if they invite me, but if, I just ask you, maybe consider extending the invitation. That's all.
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, next we have announcements. So next meeting is on Monday, April 28, 2025, at 7:30 p.m. here at the Townhouse, 11 Main Street, South Salem. And I'd like to go ahead and motion.
5, I heard, 28.
28.
Yeah.
April 28, 2025.
There was 25 at the end.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I'd like to go ahead and motion that we go into executive session to discuss real estate.
And personnel.
Do you have a personnel matter?
It
You
came
do?
in an email.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Okay, fine.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?